have all that energy in the room.
That's cool. So nobody was there on Zoom?
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and all of you potential Toastmasters out there. Welcome to the show. This is Wake Up with Toastmasters. I am your Program Quality Director for District 115, Ken Richardson. And with me today is my co-host, the lovely Phyllis Trivy, Distinguished Toastmaster and past District Director. Good morning, Phyllis.
Good morning, Ken, and good morning to our public out there. And welcome.
Welcome especially to our guest today, the lovely Dana Wall Oakley, who is our current administration manager for District 115. We're so glad that you're here. Today, we're going to discuss hybrid meetings because this is a topic of interest to everyone. You know, hybrid meetings have become a mainstay, and now they're part of the culture, just as Zoom meetings are part of the culture for Toastmasters International. However, I must confess that I am not as skilled as I would like to be in setting up a hybrid meeting. And one of the things we'll discuss with Dana today is recommendations on the type of hardware, the equipment, because that is so crucial. And then we'll look at should clubs who are committed to hybrid buy that equipment, and should the district invest more in being able to provide to all of our areas and divisions a more stable type of hybrid presentation. So Dana, welcome. Welcome indeed.
Thank you.
How did you get so interested in becoming sort of a hybrid savant?
I'm the one who's technologically inclined. I've been working with computers, my whole life, and I have 2 laptops, which helps. And I wanted to be the one to help us to bring those people who can't come in person into the meeting. And that's the way we've been doing it. So yeah, I just like the technology. I'm our webmaster, I'm our tech guru, and I like helping people figure things out on the computer. So it just kind of fell to me. So I'm the one. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you were in, I know, Windjammers.
Yes.
And I know Windjammers does an excellent job of presenting hybrid meetings. Are you in other clubs that also do hybrid? Or?
I am in one other club where we try to do hybrid, and that is Toastmasters. So we were meeting at the Government Center on Tuesday, the first and third Tuesday, and we have I don't know, 4 or 5 people that show up at the meeting in person, and pretty much the same that show up on Zoom. And the difference is I don't bring both. So for a perfect hybrid meeting, you really need 3 devices. 2 that face the room and 1 that faces the lectern. That way, the people on Zoom see everybody who's in the room and who's at the lectern. Then you also have enough devices for the people in the room to see who's there on Zoom. So at Toastmasters, we don't always have 3 devices, and we don't have an extra speaker/microphone device. And so the Zoom people have difficulty hearing us. So we're still working on it for Toastmasters. I forgot to bring my second device, and so Wednesday morning, Windjammers, I'm all set up. I always have both my laptops with me. My mom brings her iPad, and we use the iPad to face the lectern, and my computers face the room. We also, as a club, purchased a speaker microphone on Amazon. It was only like $45, and it works beautifully. So they can hear us. The problem with laptops generally is if you have the one that is the microphone for the room, it's facing away from the lectern. People on Zoom can't hear you. You need an extra microphone. so that everybody in the room can be heard by the people on Zoom. And then you need a really good speaker so that everybody in the room can hear who's there on Zoom. So if you don't have the necessary equipment, then you do have difficulties. I feel like it's ridiculous to have people in the room, say you have like 5 or 6 people in the room, 4 or 5 people on Zoom, and all the people in the room have their own device. And all the people on Zoom are like looking at all these little boxes, but you're in the room. I think that's kind of silly, right? Why do hybrid? Why not just stay home and do Zoom? Right? I've seen that, and I don't think that's a hybrid meeting. I think that's a Zoom in-person meeting.
So it sounds like you mentioned the speakerphone was only about $45. So it sounds like the equipment may be less expensive than a lot of clubs are concerned.
Yeah.
What other, so $45 for a speaker, the 2 laptops we'll assume members may have. I also have, well, I have 1 laptop, but I can usually borrow my wife's laptop if I need to. And I do have a speaker. What else do you really need then? Or would you recommend?
Yeah, if you don't have a speaker microphone combo, you really do need an external microphone, because the people that are on Zoom have difficulty hearing everyone in the room if you're just using, say, for example, you set the iPad up, it's facing the lectern, that's your microphone for the room. You can hear everybody who's at the lectern just fine. But if someone wants to speak, say, for example, the timer, they usually speak from their seat, right, to give the timer's report. Well, the microphone on the laptop or the iPad is facing the lectern. It's not going to really hear that timer from the back of the room. So you could potentially have everyone come up to the lectern, use that device for your microphone, and that would work. Then you wouldn't have to worry about people being heard in the room. But, that is one way to do it. Have table topics respondents, have all the speakers, have everybody come to the device that's at the lectern. That could be the microphone, no problem. Then you would need some sort of device that has a good enough speaker so that when you have the people there on Zoom speaking, we had a meeting a couple of weeks ago where our Toastmaster was one of our members that was on Zoom. So we have 8 people in the room, 3 people on Zoom, and our Toastmaster is one of those that's on Zoom. It worked. It worked because we have the good device, we have the good speaker, the good microphone, and the lectern isn't empty because you have the device sitting up there. And I put that particular laptop on speaker view so that when she spoke, you had the bigger box, and she ran the meeting. And it worked really well. So the biggest thing to think about is, do you have a device where the speaker is good? Do you have a device where the microphone is good? And do you have devices that can see, where you can see everyone? I generally sit at one of the laptops that's facing the room, and I will monitor the chat, and I'll toggle the view between that gallery and speaker view so we can see everybody that's there on Zoom. And then when it's their turn to speak, I make it bigger so we can see them better.
Phyllis, I know that you're in 2 clubs, Holistic and Cause Masters, and both of those are hybrid. So Phyllis, what kind of issues have you encountered, and how have you solved them in your clubs?
She mentioned one of the great ones, and that is not necessarily being able to see, but the people on Zoom can't hear. And you keep hearing that and hearing that. So it's great that people show up early, and usually within 5 minutes of the start time, the setup is there, and then we're testing. Should we have it here? Should it be there? And to
Yeah.
get the sound exactly so that everybody on Zoom hears us and can see us, and the room is comfortable. And another thing I want to mention too is the setup of the room. Don't be afraid to test a few different views. We found out that we were setting up holistic because we have this huge screen on the wall, and all of the people that are on Zoom appear on it. So we were looking at it, but every time somebody went up to the lectern, their back was to the
screen.
people on Zoom, the screen people. And so they were talking to the few people that were there. They weren't talking to the people that were on Zoom. So we rearranged the room. Now we have our front going kind of cata-corner, so that even if you're at the lectern at the corner here, you can look over at the screen, let those people know they're there. So I would say, work with your setups and see. You've got a list of equipment from Dana. Now put it together different ways in your venue to be sure it works well. And sometimes people will say, I don't see it that way. I just don't see it that way. And you just got to keep saying, let's try it over here. Let's try it. Let's see what happens. And once they get the different setup, they'll say, oh, well, yeah, I can see that now. So the setup makes a big difference of how you set up your room.
Let me ask a question of the two of you, actually. Phyllis, Dana, you mentioned putting Zoom in speaker mode so that when whoever's speaking fills the screen.
Yes.
Is that sort of equivalent to having like an external camera? Would they both do the same thing, or is going through Zoom better?
I'm sorry, it cut out a little bit. Say that again.
Yeah. So when you're in speaker view, the speaker fills the screen, basically.
Yeah.
So my question is that sort of equivalent to having an external camera, or would an external camera offer you more flexibility? What do you think?
Well, the speaker view on Zoom is, it just makes their screen bigger. We have an external camera that we use. It doesn't have any wider of a view than the camera that's already in the laptop, because I have one of my laptops has an external camera that I use and the other one doesn't, and they have about the same view. So I don't know what it looks like. Well, actually I do, because the other computer shows us. The room itself, is a big room. So not everybody's like this in the screen, right? So the people that are on Zoom watching, if they put us in speaker view, they would see us better. But I like to put them on speaker view so we can see them bigger. But the external camera, no, you don't necessarily need an external camera. Laptop cameras generally, excuse me, laptop cameras generally do a good enough job.
Okay. And another thing I wanted to talk to you about and get your advice on is, as you know, this year, for the first time, Toastmasters International is allowing competitors to compete simultaneously, in live and on Zoom. And I've always been concerned about, does the person who's competing on Zoom, does that disadvantage them in any way? So my question is, how do you set it up so that when someone is competing on Zoom, they're not disadvantaged, they have a full view or that kind of thing?
Their setup would be the most important thing. I think if you have a big screen in the room and you have a good speaker so that everybody that's in the room can hear the person on Zoom, And then they have a good setup where they've got plenty of room if they want to do full body. They have a good opportunity to really, they have to make sure that their microphone is working properly, their video or cameras working properly, and they have a good scene or setup behind them. They actually could have an advantage. I watched at the World Championship this year, we had several competitors. There was 4. It was even 4 in person and 4 off on Zoom. And the people on Zoom were able to have props and stuff that they had set up previously. They were just sitting there. They were able to use them. They were able to get up into the screen. And one of them placed, I think it was second from on Zoom. So there's the setup is important. So in our room at the conference, we need to have a big screen so that they can be seen by everyone. We need to have a good speaker so that they can be heard by everyone, and make sure that their setup at home has a good camera and a good microphone so that they can be they can come across by and make sure their Wi-Fi is good. And that's one of the things you have to think about too, is the Wi-Fi, because the Zoom connects, you have to have Wi-Fi on. So yeah, I think it could work. I really do. And you just make sure that screen's up there when it's their turn. And you have the Toastmaster ask, can you hear us? Please say something before the time starts, before they get introduced. And,
I was there as well, and I was impressed with with the clarity and the quality that the online speakers brought to the table. It was really, really good. And I was hopeful when I found out that we're going to go to Zoom to sort of a hybrid contest, if you will. Very concerned to make sure that we as a district provide our contestants with the optimal setting. So now at the convention last year, they used projectors, projecting the speakers on a big screen. Do you think that's more advantageous than using like a large screen television to showcase your speakers?
Yes, actually I do, because then you have if you're talking about, like a projector type screen, it's a little bit bigger, and then you can see the person more clearly. Did I? Am I there?
No, you're there.
Okay.
You're back now. It was only a second or two.
Okay. I think it is. I think a bigger screen. Now you do start to run into quality issues, because a projector type screen has to rely on lighting and a projector, and then it can start to get a little, I don't know, fuzzy, I guess. But it's going to be bigger than unless you get a really big screen TV. But you don't want to set up multiple screens, because like the one behind you there, you've got the lines across the face, and that wouldn't be good. So yeah, I think a bigger projector screen. Now, the people that are on Zoom, if they back up enough, we can see their whole body, right? And then we get to see all of their gestures and everything. And it would feel like they're right there if they're life size. Yeah, rather than see this little square where all you see is from here up, and that's all we get of them. Then it might not be as, I don't know, effective, I guess. Yeah. Because you know what I'm saying? But you saw the people that were in the world champion, and some of them, most of them, we only got what the waist up, and those humongo screens really allowed us to see them. bigger than life.
Yeah.
So
I do have a comment. Nadia has joined us. Good morning,
Awesome.
Nadia. So glad
Morning.
to see you this morning.
yeah.
And her comment is she likes that Toastmasters had judges online
Mhm.
and in person, so it was fair. She thinks that makes a difference. Now, I haven't had an opportunity to speak to our chief judge yet. That is D. George Lund. He is the chief judge for District 115.
Mhm.
So I don't know where he stands on that issue, but certainly that's one thing that we will be discussing as contest season gets started. We'll be starting encouraging clubs January, because our deadline for the district is, of course, May 6th. That's the
Yes.
scheduled date for our conference this year.
Conference. Yeah.
I'm so looking forward. I'm so excited about it. I love conference time. I love contests and contest season. I just, I want to go to as many as I possibly can. And certainly as your program quality director, I'm very, very concerned and interested in making sure that it is as competitive as possible and as fair as possible. So the other
Mhm.
thing I wanted to ask you is sometimes, I think I have really good internet here at my house.
Mhm.
I use Cox. I don't want to give them a plug. They're kind of pricey.
Yeah.
But,
That's what we use. So they are. Yes.
yes. But for the most part, I've been very satisfied. Very few hiccups. My concern, as you brought up, Danny, is you need to have stable internet wherever you are. So my
Yeah.
question is there a way to supplement that with, say, a hotspot to make sure that you get that stability? How would we do that?
Mhm. Yes. Well, people, well, I don't know about most people, but some people in their cell service, they have a hotspot. So you set up the hotspot with your cell phone. You can also rent a hotspot from the library.
Oh,
There's a club that told me that they do that, and they just take turns renting the little hotspot device from their library, and they just rotate who's next, checking it out. And you get it for, what did they say? A month, I think, at a time, or I forget well, don't quote me. I forget the number of days, but you can check out a hotspot from a library. So you don't even have to buy one. But
oh.
so some of your members do have like a hotspot where you can use the cell service of that individual. So sometimes we'll use my hotspot, or my iPad itself has its own cell service. So if we use my iPad, then I don't have to worry about a hotspot. It's got its own cell if the Wi-Fi goes out. We don't have any trouble with the Wi-Fi at Skinny Dugan's, which is where Windjammers meets on Wednesday mornings. Just have to make sure they haven't changed the password. But we don't have any trouble with the Wi-Fi there. But at the government center, sometimes the Wi-Fi will go out in the room we use. And that's it. I'm in 3 other clubs. Well, I just joined Holistic, and I was over there, and they didn't have. Do you guys use Wi-Fi, or was it someone's cell service? Do they have Wi-Fi there at the?
Yes.
Okay. And it seemed to work fine too. So yeah, you just have to have a stable Wi-Fi and rely on the meeting place where you're meeting. Is the Wi-Fi good? So for the conference and the contest, we do have to think about that. Is the Wi-Fi going to be stable, especially during the contest? But you're wanting to do what you call a hybrid for the whole conference, right?
Yes.
So it's going to have to be stable, and the devices not freeze up for the entire day.
Yeah, it will largely. I tell you, I'm so glad Nadia joined us, because I know she and Kristen Harrell, they worked together with Nadia, sort of managing online events, and it was just
Nice.
I heard nothing but good comments. We had good, strong Wi-Fi. We didn't have really, maybe a little blip here and there, but nothing of consequence. So I'm hoping we can duplicate that. The one question I did have was Now, if you're using your cell phone's hotspot,
Mm-hmm.
do you plug that into your primary host computer, or how does that work?
No, it just works by it becomes a Wi-Fi, and you change the Wi-Fi on your computer to that. Like,
Okay.
you know how you choose a network when
Mhm.
you're choosing Wi-Fi, you turn on your hotspot, it has a name, and
Uh-huh.
it becomes a Wi-Fi. So then you just go onto your laptop and choose that Wi-Fi network as your Wi-Fi for the laptop. And I have a password. So when people want to use my hotspot, here's the password.
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
so you just it just connects, wirelessly. I don't have any kind of cord or anything that I put, because
Okay.
laptops these days, the USB ports are very limited, and it only has two, and I always use a mouse. I can't use my laptop without a mouse. So there's one right there. The camera's in another one.
Mhm.
So what I've done is I have I don't know if you can see it. I have a separate thing that I plug into one of the USBs, which gives me 4 extra USB ports.
Yeah, I've got one of those as well, but
so that helps.
sometimes, and maybe you can enlighten us if it's the device, but I have
Mhm.
one that gives me 3 extra USB ports.
Mhm.
But there are some devices, like my speaker slash microphone
Mhm.
says plug directly into the computer, because I guess the signal is weakened if you go through
Yeah.
So have you had experience with that?
Yes, I have. That can happen. And so then that's why there are 2 USB ports. This goes into one, and I just plug the speaker microphone into the other.
Makes sense. All right. Well, we are close to our time here. It is
Wow.
6:27. Yeah, didn't
That
it go
went
by
fast. It went really fast.
Yeah. So I'll start as we wrap up. Dana, any last minute words for our audience that you'd like to share?
Hybrid is great. It really allows for the people that are not able to get to the meetings. Here's a good example. One of our members went to Durango, Colorado for the summer for a speaking job. She's been able to be at every single meeting from Durango, Colorado, because we have the hybrid set up. Our author, well, not our authors meeting, that's Zoom only, and that'll always be Zoom only, but it allows for people that temporarily have to be out of town or that are laid up, that can't get to the meetings, to be a part of the meeting. If you set it up properly, you really have a full, rich meeting with the people in person and the people who are there on Zoom. And you get together, and it works. It really works. And we're really grateful that we can do that. And if you don't have 3 devices, you can set up one laptop that faces the room and the other one that faces the front, and you can make it work. You can.
Excellent. Well, I think our next task, Dana, will be to create a document of tips and tricks for hybrid meetings. We're also expecting some guidance coming down from TI. And I do have a couple of announcements, but before we get to that, I want to ask Phyllis if there's anything she wants to say to our audience before we sign off.
Well, if you're going to compete on Zoom, then it's up to you to get the proper equipment and make it work right.
Mhm.
So I would say, if that is your skill to be on Zoom, start working on that equipment, because you want to be the best competitor, and you don't want any equipment, lighting, camera, action, whatever. Practice and make it work now to the best of your advantage.
And make sure you put the dog outside so that the dog doesn't bark while you're.
Yes.
And children crying.
Right.
Children crying, and cats walking across the screen.
Cats walking across the keyboard all of a sudden, yeah.
Little things like that. Well, I want to thank both of you today. It's been wonderful having you, Dana. I really
Yeah,
appreciate your
thank
coming
you.
on, getting up so early and sharing your expertise. And Phyllis, of course, it's always a pleasure. Couple of real quick announcements. I want to remind everyone that Wake Up with Toastmasters is on 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And if you'd like to be a guest, you can get in touch with me or with Gene Williams, and we'd be happy to have you. And or Scott Transu, our Club Growth Director. 6 to 6:30 is our usual time, although sometimes we might run over a little bit. Upcoming events on the 22nd, we have the Hall of Fame, and the registration has gone out for that. It's a free event where we recognize accomplishments of our fellow Toastmasters and congratulate them. We'll also be giving out the first quarter incentives to those clubs who had 100% officers trained and have the, let's see, it was a computer challenge, I believe. In any event, that's going to be October 22nd. It will also be hybrid. So live in person at the Flamingo Library, the Clark County Library on Flamingo, starting at 10:30 a.m. We will have a little lunch, so we don't want you starving. So we will provide some food. If you are interested in attending, you need to register just so we can keep count and make sure we have enough food. We don't run out of food. So you can contact me for that. It will be hybrid, and I sent out the link for that to register through all of the club secretaries. So hopefully you'll be able to join us. And then last but not least, on the last Saturday of the month is game night, which is just a fun time for folks to get together and, as it implies, play games. And
Yep.
you know, one of the most challenging things I think I've had, you know, you can play games like Jeopardy, which are, I love Jeopardy, but have you ever tried to play drawing? What is the game?
Pictionary. Oh my gosh, it's so fun.
Yeah, it is really a challenge. Pictionary on Zoom, you know, it does have a whiteboard.
We use the whiteboard. It's
Yes,
so much fun.
Trying to draw, I'm terrible at doing that. So anyway, for more information or anything, you can contact me at krichardson@gmail.com, and I will get you whatever you need for that. So once again, thank you, ladies, for joining us. I want to say thanks to Nadia for joining us online.
Yeah, it was
Have
fun.
a great day, and we will see you next time.
Bye,
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.